This video is the first step in the first objective of the Great Lake Heritage Project, which is to create a digital information center of central Newfoundland's wilderness history. Also, to create a stakeholder forum for the sustainability of the central Newfoundland wilderness as a park for all reasons by communities, cabin owners, and outfitters, with the genuine interest in the preservation of our wilderness, in cooperation with the corporations as they come and go. The unwritten history of the central Newfoundland wilderness is only written in the sandy shores of Red Indian Lake and by the landmarks scattered by the woods roads that connect them. They are only seen by those who wander the wilderness, and most are blind to the true history of the region. The shifting sands of June's Cove, as seen from the Lewis Miller Wharf in 2005, and the sandbar that was called Sabbath Point in 1768, as illustrated in this drawing on which Cartwright described a large Beothuk encampment, are no longer known by the new residents of Millertown or visiting tourists. The receding lake level each year displays the remnants of the sawmill that Lewis Miller built in June's Cove, and the town he built on Sabbath Point, which he called Mary March Point. These are a few historic images from the collection of over 150 photographs included in the Lewis Miller album. They show the town of 100 homes along with the barn and other buildings at the end of the branch railway line from Joglode's Pond, later to be named Millertown Junction. The scope of the operation is shown in the steam-powered boats used to tow the pine log down Red Indian Lake to the modern sawmill driven by 2 steam engines. Then the steam locomotive was used to transport the lumber to Little Burnt Bay, which later became known as Lewisport. The town on Mary March Point had the Miller home out on the point, with management home on the street out to the point, behind which were the workers' homes on the sandy flat where the Beothuk encampment once was. Logging camps were built all around Red Indian Lake and connected by a road around the lake for summer access across the first dam built at Exploits River outfall, and a bridge was built across Victoria River. The pine logs hauling operation was done in the winter by horses and oxen on the snow-covered wilderness, with pine logs placed on the frozen lake, which also made winter transportation of supplies much easier. When the Harmsworths acquired the assets of the Newfoundland lumber estates, the Anglo-Newfoundland Development Company was formed, and the first logging was done on the shoreline slopes of Red Indian Lake from Millertown, because the logging camp network around the lake was already built. In 1912, the first hospital built off the Avalon Peninsula was built in Millertown, and a new graduate from medical school was hired to serve the logging community of Millertown. Dr. Carson Kendall served the people in the Millertown Logging Division for 3 years, and these images are from his photographic collection. Another image of the town as it was being moved off Mary March Point in preparation for the new dam to be constructed at the Exploits River outfall to raise the lake level as a reservoir for hydroelectric power at Grand Falls and Bishop Falls. From the collection are images of the new wooden dam built at Exploits River, and the Harpoon Depot was also on the west shoreline of the lake. A wagon road from Exploits Dam to Harpoon City connected camps built along the way to log the river valley. Another photograph was of the Harbour Round Depot, from where a wagon road went over the ridge to Victoria River at Harmsworth City for logging the lower Victoria River Valley. The new steamship, the Fleetway, was under construction in front of the section of the sawmill building that was used by the company as a supply store and also housed the first Exploits Valley Raw Stores general store. The Millertown Logging Division supplied the paper mill about 100,000 cords of wood annually, and for the first 50 years it was manpower and horses that cut, hauled, and drove the wood on a network of brooks and rivers to the mill. The supply store in Millertown and supply depot at Lake Ambrose stocked all the food and supplies for all the camps during each year of operations. A series of photographs from the A&D Company collection tell the story, as all existing buildings were numbered and the cost of moving and setup was well recorded in the company office. By the end of 1927, the old wooden dam was replaced with the new concrete dam, and the town began to take on a new look. The old company office was replaced with a new one, as the logging operations expanded to the upper Harpoon River Valley and over the ridge to the Nopal River Valley. Slowly, the changes started as a new locomotive, number 21, was added to make the daily run to Millertown Junction, and Old 20, as she was called, was the main engine that made the daily trips to Lake Ambrose Depot. For transportation of staff to and from Millertown Junction and Lake Ambrose, the old number 1 was replaced with the new number 1, and there was also the speeders used by the section crews, fire patrol, and for other services. Millertown also had a machine shop, forge, and carpenter shop, along with A&D Company divisional office. As a company town, the school, church, and town hall were maintained by the company, as with all the homes in the town, company owned or not. When they moved the houses built by Lewis Miller, they added a kitchen, pantry, and porch to them, plus a woodshed with attached outhouse for every home. Most homes were occupied on a 99-year lease, but retirement meant leaving town for those in company-owned houses. Every garden was surrounded by a picket fence, which was built from pickets, post, and railing supplied by the company on request. This photograph, taken between 1940 and 1945, after the new two-room school was built, as the third room was not added until 1945. It also shows CTH's store as a one-story building. Other buildings, as the post and telegraph office, the old school when turned into 2 residential units, and the new Orange Lodge that was across from the new school. The last locomotive was number 23, the shed that housed the turntable for turning the locomotives around for the next run to Millertown Junction. When the Fleetway, the last wooden steamship, finished towing wood on Red Indian Lake, she towed all the materials and equipment for Buchan's mine construction up Red Indian Lake on a barge and an oil barrel raft to Buchan's Landing. This photograph was taken where she was anchored off for the winter. When the lake level dropped during the winter, a huge rock under her broke a hole in her hull, and she never floated again and disintegrated over time. The next fleet of steel tugboats used started during the 1950s, when the upper Victoria River Valley and Victoria Lake area were being logged and the wood driven down the river and towed from the mouth of Victoria River to Exploits Dam. Then, in 1957, when the Trans-Canada Highway included Newfoundland, the road to Millertown was about to change the landscape, as the road was also extended to Lake Ambrose, and from there to Victoria Lake. The road was built in 1950. The locomotive number 23 was moved to Grand Falls, and number 21 was relegated as a ferry service to take all vehicles across Exploits Dam, with number 20 parked on the siding across the dam. Harpoon Railway was now a memory of accidents and other incidents, and a section camp that was no longer required. The use of Lake Amber's depot was short-lived, as the distributors were delivering to the new depot at 26 Mile, and soon directly to the camps, as they became connected to the roads. The changing face of the town started, as the bypass road was now back of the town, and the company town was no longer. All the buildings were sold to the town for $1 each, and a community council was formed. The Millertown Council still struggles under debt, with an infrastructure that was a logistical disaster, engineered and redesigned without meeting the water and wastewater requirements of the town. When the prospects of prosperity were on the horizon in 2000 with the Talipan Duck Pond mining venture, all efforts to expand the town when properties were in demand, the discussion in distant boardrooms and Confederation building were not that of cooperation, but more of resistance. 20 years of research and endless discussions still meet with criticism, and not cooperation as shown in these 15 documents published for discussion that never resulted in action by any stakeholder. The second step in this proposal is to establish a logging exhibit in Millertown to present the logging venture and logging history of central Newfoundland that changed the socio-economic structure of Newfoundland society. The final long-term goal is to coordinate the present collective interest in the history of the Beothuk at Red Indian Lake with the goal to establish an exhibit of Beothuk life at Indian Point, which was started in 2005 and called Takamahaka Project. This concept includes a glimpse into the future, using a few images from the past to see if there is a collective interest in the communities of Buckens, Bucket Junction, Millertown, and Badger for planning a prosperous future.